Penguin Random House Audio presents Paper and Blood, Book 2 of the Ink and Sigil series, by Kevin Hearne. Read for you by Luke Daniels. 4 Aussies. Author's Note: Since Al MacBharrais and his companions are Glaswegians and have a particular way of speaking, I've provided some guidance here as to how their speech should be pronounced, in case you want it. I haven't tried to reproduce the Glaswegian Scots dialect in all its glory, but rather chosen to focus on a few phrases and words that provide the general flavor of their speech. While it may seem disorienting at first, you do get used to it, and will find the rules are pretty consistent. There are as well some specific words from the Irish language that probably need some helpful hints, since their pronunciation would not be immediately obvious to English speakers. So, here we go. Caranach, an Irish name, where the final syllable would rhyme with rack, except that the CH sound is more like a guttural German thing instead of a hard K sound. Ullafisht, because that I before the S means it's a slender vowel and turns the S into an SH sound. First syllable would rhyme with dull. That's your other Irish word? Okay, now to the Scots. First and most important, ye is not pronounced as ye, with a long E. No. Ouija's are not speaking lines from old-timey pirate movies. Y is pronounced like y and used in place of you in most cases. Sometimes they'll take the trouble to spell and pronounce you the standard way just for emphasis, but when they're calling someone a name, as in, you jammy bastard, the vowel shifts differently to a short A sound, so it would appear as you jammy bastard. For extra credit, you can combine them in repetitive phrases, as when a parent might call their mildly misbehaving child, you rascal you. A Ouija would say, you rascal ye. In the same vein, yer is used in place of your, and yer in place of your with an apostrophe. And again, there's no long E sound in either of those. The long E is next. Te is pronounced like T, and is used in place of to in speech. Happy birthday to you, therefore, would be happy birthday to ye, pronounced as t'ye, except I imagine when it is sung. Gunne is the same as gunna in English slang, but the vowel at the end is a long A, so the spelling reflects that. My is typically pronounced as ma in speech, and is therefore spelled that way, as in, I'm gonna call my mum. Head and dead are pronounced like heat and deet, but spelled as H-E-I-D and D-E-I-D. P-O-L-I-S is the police, but it's pronounced like polis rather than police. To avoid using contractions like didn't and couldn't, the Scots often use N-A-E in place of the N'-T, pronounced like knee. So, he didn't run far because he couldn't, since his shoelaces were tight. If the word not is to be used by itself, the T at the end is often dropped, resulting in phrases like, I'm no gonna pay for your booze, you wanker. You should pay my bill instead. An interesting exception to the rule is the use of don't instead of dinny. While dinny is commonly used on the east coast of Scotland, it isn't used at all in Glasgow, and since Al, Buck, and Nadia are using Glasgow Scots, you'll see don't throughout. There are actual linguistic papers that detail the Glasgow dinny gap, and yes, I've read them, because I geek out on linguistics a bit. Ooh, yeah, is an exclamation equivalent to ouch. Hod is used sometimes in lieu of hold, and it's regionally accented, meaning it might be pronounced differently depending on where in Scotland the speaker's from. In this case, we're using the Ouija accent, so H-O-U-D is going to rhyme with Claude. Overheard in Glasgow? Oi, you only got 2 meters in distance spacing? Hold my beer while I unroll my fire hose. A stooshy and a rammy are both Scots terms that refer to a violent confrontation. I take particular joy in these words, since they sound adorable, but in practice involve the spilling of blood and the breaking of bones. A walloper is something big enough to give you a wallop, but the standard implication is that it might just be a huge dick. A pile of jobbies means a whole lot of turds. A jammy bastard is a person who's extremely lucky, but with the implication that maybe they don't deserve to be. Gallus is an adjective that means stylish and impressive. What is just a shorter, vowel-shifted what, almost exclusively used by Buck Foy. The phrase, "nae danger," can mean either no worries or no chance. A few Scots words that need to be broken down. milngavie equals milgai. Yeah, I know. That looks like 3 syllables, and you're wondering why the N and the V are silent, so that's why I provide these guides. I'm told that in the extra credit Ouija pronunciation, when it's spoken quickly, the first syllable will vowel shift to a short U, so it sounds like mulgai. Bardowie equals bardowie, rhymes with Howie. Weans equals wanes. But that there is a noun, my friends, not a verb. In Scotland, it's a contraction for wee ones, and therefore refers to children. At one point in Glasgow, there was a baby clothing shop called Wayne's World. And since this novel is mostly set in Australia, there are a few Aussie slang terms that might need some elucidation. Arvo is a term that means afternoon. Unco is a shortened version of uncoordinated. Flat out means incredibly busy. Also, you will find that there is a location named Donnelly Weir and an associated park and picnic area as well. But the road to it is named Donnelly's Weir Road, and the creek is Donnelly's Creek. This is not an inconsistency or an editing error, but rather reflective of how those places are spelled in Australia. The inconsistency exists in reality, in other words, and we are being consistent with that. Hope that all helps, and thanks for listening. The story so far. In Ink and Sigil, we meet Al MacBharrais, an aging sigil agent who would very much like to train an apprentice to take over his territory so that he can retire. But they have a worrisome habit of dying. 6 of them, in fact, have died in apparently freak accidents. When his 7th apprentice, Gordy, is found dead in his Glasgow flat, Al hurries over and discovers that Gordy had a hobgoblin imprisoned in one of his bedrooms. The hobgoblin informs Al that Gordy had been trafficking fae, including a pixie, to some unknown buyer, and he escapes shortly afterward. Al finds a note that says the hobgoblin was supposed to be delivered to a ferry at 8 p.m., and Al is determined to find out who's behind it. He clears out Gordy's flat, all the inks and papers, plus his phone and laptop, and takes the cage that the hobgoblin escaped from, leaving the one the pixie was in. He goes to see a hacker, rather outrageously named Saxon Codpiece, to see what info can be gleaned from the laptop. The information gleaned reveals that Gordy had sold 6 fey creatures to someone over the past months and been paid £100,000 for each. When he returns to his print shop, Al is met by the hobgoblin, who asks to be called by the name of Buck Foy. Buck claims he was lured to the plane by a fake offer of contracted service from Cleana, one of the Tuatha Danann and Queen of the Banshee. Al offers him a legitimate contract to be his hobgoblin, and Buck accepts. Together they go to the ferry to meet whoever was supposed to buy.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?